somebody recommended that I go to this place called Silver Screen, which I'd never heard of, and they made commercials, make ads, and it turned out actually to be a great place to train, because although they were ads, the standard that they aspired to technically was really, really high, and so I kind of learnt how to make things look good. And then the other part of it was really concise storytelling that you get from making commercials, and in 30 seconds or 60 seconds you get to tell a story, and as much as you can, depending on what style of commercial you're trying to make, engage with the audience in some way, in sort of the same way as I saw happen in Once Were Warriors on a different scale. Connecting within a short period of time was great training. There were only a couple of options really for the role, and he said I was really thinking of Wi Kuki. I went, oh no, because it's really scary, and he stayed really scary through the whole piece. When talking to him, I'd say what I was thinking and wait for a response, and I wouldn't usually get one. And he told with his eye going off here, and then if something I said resonated, he'd go, and then if it didn't, he'd go, with the odd word now and again, but he really understood it. And once, if you see the short film, you can see he's really found that character as this really lost soul, and he captured it. My favourite shot, there's some cool shots in it, but my favourite shot is just this one really close on him walking through is it Midland Park, the park in Wellington, and we see the park and we see all the people around, but just the shot of him right in here, kind of insular. The fact the closeness of it is quite intentional. There's a lot of sound. The soundtrack's full of all the stuff around him, but the shot is really stuck in here, and the idea is everything's very frightening to him, and we're kind of right in his face. So that's my favourite shot. Sam, the stuntman, said I was kind of talking about ways we could do it, and maybe a bit of digital stuff, and Sam just said, you just hit me with the car. Magic of television. So that was it. So that's the stuntman playing Wi Kuki in that shot, and of course you don't know because it's a wide shot and he's got his back to camera. If you go back and look at it, you'll see his old man walk is actually a little bit ridiculous. He looks a little bit like a sort of a loping gorilla, but you don't really notice it at the time. And then the car comes only from about 1 metre off the side of frame. So, and then with the sound effect, we made it sound like it was coming in from much further. And just a bit of it was Sam's assistant in the car, knowing when to brake at exactly the right moment. So it does hit him, but a lot of it is also sold by Sam rolling up onto the bonnet of the car and then back down again. But there's nothing tricky in there. It was actually a really good one for an editor to do because there's no dialogue. So the whole thing is on glances and very little actual action as well. They're all just sitting down doing glances and throwing little stones and playing little tricks without saying a word. So it's actually a great piece for an editor to contribute quite strongly on. I've done quite a lot of, and Outrageous Fortune is one of them, quite a lot of television episodes of serial stuff, and that's really a chance to practice craft as much as anything, and that it's your job as a director to not change the style unless you're an establishing director, which I've done too when you're doing the first few episodes, and then that's a different thing because you're helping create the show. But when you're doing episodes 7 and 8 of series 2, your job is to keep it looking the same, and so that's a good craft exercise in a way. You're still telling. It's a little bit like commercials in that you're telling stories in the way that they can be best told. Right near the end of the Tattooist film, I was given the honour of becoming a Matai, and my Samoan name is Tui Whaasesina, so I'm not sure whether that goes in my name. Maybe it might be Tui Whaasesina Piti Miti Rangitane Ka Burja. So that's quite an honour in itself. And it was a symbol of the really of the great relationship that we'd established between us, the filmmakers, and the Samoan people who were kind of looking after us through the process, because that was, I guess, a bit like Mataku. It was a modern ghost story using old Samoan elements, and there's always dangerous territory to deal with, because these old ghost stories have are old in some ways, but the beliefs and the tapus and the taboos are still very much around, and so when kind of touching on other people's culture, it needs to be done really, really carefully. And they were really good about both giving us license, both going, hey, we love a good ghost story, and if you can kind of make us all ooh in the theatre, then cool, we love it. And at the same time going, hey, don't do that. His technique was really, really interesting. He was telling me that he'd come from a background of doing impersonations and being basically the class clown, and he still is. He's a great impersonator and he's a great clown. When we were talking about the character that he was playing, Cohen would always talk about David in the third person, and maybe that was because David Doherty is a real person. But even on set, by the time that you're wearing the costume and you're sitting in the set and you're sitting in the position where I'm about to do my thing on camera, almost every other actor I've ever worked with will by that time have kind of like internalized the character, and they might say something like, oh, when I get to here I feel like I want to really shout at him, or I'm feeling really angry right now. Cohen would always speak about the character in the third person, so he'd say, oh yeah, he's sitting here and he's feeling quite uncomfortable, and he feels like he wants to, and it was all this sort of channeling kind of thing. And he did such a beautiful job. I kind of wonder whether his approach, which I suspect is probably like an unconscious or subconscious way that he's developed, is to like create separate from himself this identity of this person which is kind of over here, and because he's such a good mimic, would create a really, really three-dimensional view of this character, and then impersonate the character that he's imagined. And he'd do a great job of impersonating him, because that's what he does. It's very similar to what anyone else would do, but they will kind of bring it into themselves. But I think it allows Cohen to have quite a big range, because he's mimicking these people that he's imagined. It's just a sort of a very heartfelt kind of show with popcorn colours, which is always really fun. And the reason really that I kind of kept on going back and making more and more episodes were that the heart of it is optimistic and funny and very, very strong. It's really what it's about. The rest of it's all frou-frou, but it's about these kind of people growing up. And the other reason is the cast. By sort of the last few episodes that I was doing, it was kind of like, oh well, I've got this tele-feature coming up, and maybe, but it really went back because the cast are just great fun to be around and really lovely people. So it's one of the most sort of positive and optimistic shows that you could ever work on. What we're not going to try and do is recreate all the famous images of Billy T and sort of basically expose Tainui, or whoever was to end up playing Billy, to this really direct comparison. So where we put the emphasis was on Billy the person and his personal life and his sort of journey in the political situation that he worked in, rather than just trying to make it a comedy show, which was, if you're going to do that, then just watch Billy T. Jane.